The foreign goblin lair, the chief asked the goblin girl what the deal was with the outsider, and she explained that he had brought Lin Tian in because he had nowhere to go. That explanation seemed satisfactory to the chief, but not for good reasons. He immediately handed the order to kill the outsider freak and eat his meat. The tribe celebrated in a frenzy. Pulling out his knife, Lin Tian had to think fast for a way out. The only feasible idea that struck him was to offer his services to create new weapons for the tribe that would make them stronger. Hearing such an interesting proposition blunted the chief's bloodlust, ordering his goblins to wait up. This goblin priest started making his way closer to Lin Tian, seemingly scanning him from head to toe. Since the young orc does not have the distinct smell of a liar, the chief asked what kind of weapons he could offer. Hours upon hours of watching blacksmithing shows in the previous world have led him here. As long as there are iron ores, he'd be able to make simple tools and better weapons given some time. Given that the chief can speak in the human language, it's safe to assume that higher-level monsters possess higher levels of intelligence. Lin Tian put forth an idea that gaining iron tools would equip the tribe with the tools to stop fearing humans. The proposal was too tempting, so the chief gave in and gave Lin Tian 3 days to find ores and produce results in exchange for his life. The chief even bundled up the goblin girl's life alongside Lin Tian if he failed to do this job. As soon as the leader retreated to his quarters, the rest of the tribe followed suit. One thing's for sure is that the old chief is a ruthless bastard who'd kill his own kind in cold blood. Confronting him head-on is out of the question. He'll have to make iron tools to buy time while covertly getting stronger. That night, a scout party was released to the barren woods, guided by the moonlight. The group, including the goblin girl, has been walking all day and all night, so it's naturally exhausting. But when she showed even a tiny sign of fatigue, the rest of the goblins would quickly gang up against her to berate and beat her down. They treat her like a punching bag, seeing her as lesser than the average male goblins. This disgusting display of behavior earned the leading goblin a head injury after getting rocked by a rock through the back of his head. Lin Tian clarified that he brought these bastards along to help find iron and not to fight senselessly. He briefed them about the ore's appearance before heading out. If the search party wants to stay alive, each one needs to find one piece of ore in the valley ahead. Failure to comply and hit the quota would of course be punishable by death. Hearing Lin Tian say that while holding an iron knife made the goblins tremble in fright. A fire has been lit under their asses, scrambling in every direction in hopes of finding an ore unless they want to get clapped by the chief. Deep in thought, Lin Tian admitted that what he's trying to do is just temporary. He'd get killed in just a matter of time once he outlived his usefulness. But there's an obvious recourse through this. The system was practically telling him to mate with the goblin girl to attain the legendary goblin god status. So, Lin Tian approached the crying bullied lady, gently telling her to stop crying. He even kneeled right next to her so she could hear what he was saying a lot clearer. Lin Tian proposed that they stay together. If she's under his wing, no one would mess with her. She will be protected, she'll get meat to eat, a warm place to stay, and some much-needed peace. He assured her that he was a man of his word. But they're too weak at the moment. To avoid being bullied, they both need strength. Hearing the possibility of getting stronger, the goblin girl's eyes glimmered with hope as she blushed. Without mincing his words, Lin Tian asked the lady if she would be willing to bear his children for the sake of power. Her timid response to that was par for the course. She had never been part of any kind of mating ritual before. But if it's the kind and good-hearted Lin Tian, she wants to explore a little bit more. She did not get another word as a response. She got a deep and mind-melting kiss instead. After the initial shock was gone, she was able to enjoy the passionate kiss more comfortably. Lin Tian slowly guided her body under his, laying her down on the cold ground while holding hands. Already having trouble breathing from the arousal, she pushed for Lin Tian to go ahead and give her his babies so they could get stronger. The first time it entered, the system pinged that the host would have a total of 7 children in this conception. Due to the talent limit, Lin Tian only gained 9 attacks, 100 HP, and 10 defense. When Lin Tian was done, he was drenched in sweat, his body exposed to the elements. The little goblin has reached level 7, gaining the title of Defiler. His overall combat strength jumped to 65. Not only did his level increase, but his form also improved with leaps and bounds. Right now, he'd have a much higher chance of winning against that goblin priest chief. Picking his human clothes back up, Lin Tian draped them over the goblin girl's naked body. From now on, it will be his responsibility to protect her life. She was just happy that a fellow goblin was being nice to her. But their romantic evening was interrupted by some hurried voice asking for help in a panic. It turned out to be one of the bastard goblins who accidentally bumped into a menacing demon wolf in the process of gathering ores. Lin Tian's eyes locked in on the iron ores. That's what they need. But the fool who got it brought back some trouble for the rest. Unsheathing his blade, he sharply stared at the incoming giant wolf while the goblin girl worried. The poor goblin that did not know any better taunted a brutal beast and was now about to pay the price. Fortunately, Lin Tian became strong and fast enough to deal with some severe damage as he stuck his blade on the wolf's neck. It was a one-hit, one-kill, and the fleeing goblin was speechless. Walking up to the ore-holding little shit, Lin Tian increased the intimidation in his voice to pressure the goblin to hand the material over. Of course, the little guy had no other choice but to comply in utter terror. Appraising the ore, Lin Tian guaranteed its high quality. If they could find some more, making potent weapons would be easy peasy. The next morning, a trail of smoke from the fire from the goblin camp could be seen over the forest. Lin Tian had just finished processing the obtained iron ore into a spearhead, and was now showing off the result of his work to the surprised goblins. The iron spearhead easily pierced through the skin and skull of the demonic wolf killed last night. Stone and bone materials would never have been able to achieve such a result. Even the goblin boss was surprised by the weapon made by our hero and was even speechless by this. Lin Tian pulled out the spear from the wolf's head and with a smile explained to the goblins that this iron spear was something he had made himself from iron ore. Lin Tian had just finished processing the obtained iron ore into a spearhead and was now showing off the result of his work to the surprised goblins. The goblin chief immediately desired to obtain the same spear. Lin Tian used this moment to raise the spear to the sky and attract the attention of all the goblins. Once all the goblins were staring dreamily at the desired weapon, he asked if they all wanted the same spear. Of course they did, and immediately asked him to make them one too. The goblins looked at the spear as if mesmerized, with open mouths and drooling. To them, an ordinary iron spear was like a legendary item. But the way Lin Tian attracted the attention and respect of the goblin tribe did not please the goblin priest, who was now darker than a storm cloud. In the treacherous mind of the goblin boss, a cunning idea was immediately born to use our hero and then get rid of him as a growing threat to his authority. He quickly returned all the attention to himself, and in front of the whole tribe recognized that Lin Tian can make iron weapons and seems not to be lying. But that doesn't mean anything yet. If our hero wants to stay, he has to make 50 spears in 2 days. And that's not easy. If he doesn't, he'll become meat for the tribe. Even the ordinary goblins were surprised by such harshness of their boss, who has somehow become as bad and treacherous as humans. Even so, they were ready to help Lin Tian fulfill the chieftain's demand. Lin Tian looked at the departing chieftain and couldn't help but smile as everything was going according to his plan. The fact that the chieftain didn't kill him immediately was his key mistake. Now this idiot wouldn't be able to do anything. 2 days passed and the day of delivery of the spears came. To everyone's joy and the chief's unhappy surprise, Lin Tian managed to do everything and threw a full basket of iron-tipped spears on the ground. All the goblins nearby danced with joy when Lin Tian informed the chieftain that he had brought what he had asked for. The goblin priest started smiling like crazy and even pretended to congratulate our hero for completing the task. A few minutes later, all the goblins in the camp received an iron spear each, and it was time for the feast. The goblins lit a bonfire and the chief invited everyone to celebrate Lin Tian joining their tribe, while allowing everyone to eat meat at their pleasure in honor of such an event. When the fire began to die down a little and there were enough coals, they roasted a fat, freshly caught boar, and the first biggest piece was left especially for Lin Tian. The goblin girl personally gave him this gift, as this sacrificial boar was left especially for him. Lin Tian hadn't eaten delicious meat for a long time, so he greedily began to eat. But after the first bite, he realized that it was a trap. The meat was poisoned. He fell to the ground and tried to spit the meat out, but it was too late. The stupid goblin girl had unknowingly served him poisoned food, and now she was panicking and asking what had happened to him. Just at that moment, the one who set it all up appeared. It was the goblin priest, of course. He immediately began to mock the stupidity of our hero, who, in his opinion, thought himself smart and strong enough to challenge the authority of the chief and seize power in the tribe. But the boss of the goblins warned him that nothing will work out, and on this path only death awaits him. And as punishment for his insolence, Lin Tian will lose the things he values so much, like that ugly goblin girl he cared so much about. She will be the first to pay for her betrayal. With his sharp claw, he defiantly bled her, hinting at what he was going to do after taking the knife away from Lin Tian. The goblin leader would have continued his taunts, but suddenly, blood spurted out in all directions, and the goblin girl's face darkened from the unreality of what was happening. Would she really die just like that? But the blood was not hers, and the free-flying hand of the goblin chief was proof of that. The goblin boss did not have time to put his threats into action and only wasted time with empty threats, giving Lin Tian time to recover from the poison, or rather stop pretending. Now the goblin chief held his pathetic stump of an arm and through the pain couldn't understand how this could have happened. Lin Tian only laughed off the old bastard in response. The real fool here was only him. In fact, thanks to the system, our hero knew that the chieftain would try to poison him. He was just acting to let him off his guard. The spectacle was perfect. The goblin chief lowered his head and remained silent. Not a single muscle moved, and it seemed that he was thinking about surrendering. But that was a deceptive impression. Then he quickly activated one of his priest spells and turned his bone armor into a weapon, with which he launched one last desperate attack on our hero. However, after increasing his strength level thanks to the Goblin Girl, it was very easy for Lin Tian to dodge. The unbalanced chieftain was in a very vulnerable position, and Lin Tian didn't miss the chance to take advantage of it. Gathering his strength, he delivered a powerful slashing strike straight at the neck of the former chief. His head rolled across the clearing. The other goblins were now staring at Lin Tian in horror, afraid of repeating their leader's fate. But killing them was not in our hero's plans at all. Walking to the center of the village, Lin Tian loudly announced that from today, he was the new boss, and he himself would lead the goblins forward, onward to glory and wealth, to attack humans and elves. Now there will always be plenty of meat and girls, and no one will ever underestimate the goblins and stand in their way again. Hearing this, the whole tribe of goblins began to lose their minds with joy. They raised their hands to the sky and couldn't resist dancing and saying that Lin Tian was the best boss in the world who would lead them to the blissful, endless meat. To confirm his promises, Lin Tian pointed to the corpse of the former chief and gave it to the goblins. At first, they fell silent in indecision, but then they rushed forward greedily. Tearing even raw meat with their teeth, they were not going to stop, even though this pile of meat had once ruled them. Goblins are simple. The one who has power has authority. Those without power are just fodder. Such cruel creatures our hero was going to use to fulfill his revenge. Now, after conquering the tribe of goblins, he was going to capture more female elven captives to raise a stronger generation of goblins. Apart from the goblins themselves, a pair of eyes hidden in the bushes watched this entire show. An elven scout, she had been here since the beginning and had been monitoring the situation in the goblin camp. And what she saw now did not please